Savannah Stone is a recent viral newly minted TikTok Tradwife who is fun to snark at and has created her own set of microtrends, which is definitely a certified TikTok goal. On one hand, she's just another Tradwife with traditional conservative values. On the other hand, she's everything the new right-wing woman is that helped Trump get into office. So how much power does she hold? Is she just a snarkfluencer, or is she a legit person with wisdom that the haters cannot see, or at least a message that's resonating much farther than people understand? Although she doesn't appear to be that much different from others in her field of work, haha, get it, field of work, I do think there are some notable qualities. In a strange twist, I think she is someone who is self-aware that she gets views because of her appearance. She has a lot to say about her appearance, just being attractive in general, on a much higher level than other Tradwives. Other Tradwives have advice on how to upkeep their appearance, but they don't necessarily say out loud that being hot is a major staple key part in the pillar of their marriage. She does, and in a way, it's very refreshingly honest, simply because many detractors against Tradwives criticize the movement for being all aesthetics and appearance. Savannah seems to embrace that. To be clear, there's nothing wrong with being obsessed with your appearance and basing all your relationships on it. I do think it's a nice change for someone to admit that some people do guide their principles on how they look, at least some of the time, if not all the time. But also, her fixation on traditional femininity and everything around it leads to obvious issues with the Tradwife movement, which she exemplifies greatly. Savannah is a mess of contradictions. She contradicts herself all the time, directly and indirectly. In watching all of her videos, I think she just hates women. And I don't say that because of her typical anti-abortion stance, anti-feminism. I say that because many times when making assumptions about other women and womanly things, Savannah jumps to some very strange conclusions, even in the range of the context she judges, which is conservatism. For example, in one TikTok she said she would never want to join anyone on a girls' trip because girl trips are just excuses to hook up and get drunk. She's married, so she wouldn't do that. That's a harsh conclusion to draw, even for a mega conservative woman. No girls trip, girls just can't have genuine friendships with each other and take a trip. Who said that a girl's taking a trip together defaults to being drunk on the beach and hooking up with guys? It's shocking that's what she went to. She thinks girls who are not around their husbands all the time are just sluts and, again, just want to do very promiscuous things. Also, I find it interesting she shows off her body so much in her videos, but for her, it's okay because she's married and she won't use it to be promiscuous. But other people wanting to show off their bodies who are not married, that's a huge problem. To me, she hates women and judges them so harshly. Under the skin of a lot of her opinions is basically women are just dumb and terrible and can't make decisions. And considering she went viral for trashing Kamala Harris, that's not surprising. Savannah's oldest TikToks go back to early 2024, but the month of November 2024 was what launched her into fame. She made a lot of videos bashing Kamala Harris, including putting the candidate's name in her tags in her videos. And of course, since she doesn't work, she had plenty of time to make so many TikToks to go viral while the algorithm was hot with the topic. She had a very big following in a matter of 3 weeks. From then on, she quickly jumped onto tackling other topics, circling Trump's eventual inauguration, things related to Project 2025 and the 4B movement. She is a snapshot in how very quickly right-wing politics evolved and can be very malleable, because at first she was like, oh, we need to end this war with Ukraine and prices are too high and stop Putin. Only now, generally the right wing hates Zelensky. At the time, she acknowledged the issue with the economy and that groceries were too high, but she doesn't seem to care about that much now anymore. But also, she abandoned a lot of the topics for more Tradwife lifestyle content with a mix of hot takes that are more punchy than other Tradwives. She definitely took after people like S.D. Williams, but more LA girl style. Well, she's in Florida, but you get the idea. Savannah is also someone who, unintentionally or not, can easily be a pipeline to extremism even more than her. Most of her content is standard, but there are some times her takes get wild, as I said with the girls trip, and can be a natural path from where she is to just going off a wild cliff. For example, she's a self-admitted crunchy girl, natural in nature and body, so it seems like she does care about science, but then you find out she doesn't believe in evolution. So she does suggest extreme Christianity with the lack of evolution belief, but the whole modesty part that's usually part of that conversation, I guess for her, is just left out. Many of her morals are directly or indirectly based on how a woman looks and presents to the world. It's not just about looking good, it's the culture around trying to look good. And at least I will say there is someone willing to admit there is a culture, which is kind of refreshingly honest. For example, there's a TikTok which she jokes, it's nice to be called a right-wing grifter because at least she isn't called ugly. It's a joke, but she says a lot about the morality based around how hard a woman tries to look attractive. Here's some takes she gave. If you're overweight, you lack self-discipline in every single facet of your life. You're jealous of other girls' body. You're not ugly, you just don't put enough effort into your appearance. You can clearly tell she doesn't have children yet. Okay, you know what? I can see this kind of content being attractive to follow. It's nice for someone to admit that we do live in a superficial world, and it's fine to dabble in that game a little bit. Go ahead. I support it. But for someone who admits life is about appearance, she has some strange takes to the point that it's woman bashing, as I said earlier. She talks so much about women not working hard to get an appearance, yet she says men should never get Botox, so men don't have to work into their appearance also. I really feel so sorry for all the women she's talking to who have to spend hours at Equinox while their man just gets fatter drinking beers on the couch. Relationships to her are so simple because of traditional dynamics, but the way she frames them sets up issues that are unfair and she never addresses that. For example, she believes toxic positivity is the scam. I can get behind her on that, but the way she chooses to live is based on a lot of toxic positivity and manifesting. I said before, she said men should not get Botox. Like, a good relationship is about all aesthetics. Why is it always the wife's fault if something goes wrong? She says never deprive a man from sex ever, but there's nothing about a man being bad if he deprives a woman from wanting to have sex. Again, it's women hating. She says marriage is a contract and that includes remaining hot for your husband. But again, if a happy marriage is ending and the woman puts so much effort into her appearance looking similar to Savannah, but the husband cheats anyway, then that's just leading to some serious body dysmorphia. She lambasted men, saying it should not be normalized that a man becomes a stay-at-home dad. What about disabilities? What if the wife just has to work? She says mental health culture is a scam, but what if the man has a depression and can't work? These are so many things she says, and yet if you try to link them together, they just fall apart. The roadmap in her thoughts is just very zigzag. So there's one take she gave, and I was like, okay, it's nice to see a trad wife being honest. She says there's no such thing as a soulmate and that there's multiple choices out there. I kind of like that. But then she admits she met her husband at 17 over Instagram and they got married within about 3 weeks. Sounds like manifesting soulmate stuff to me. Again, she says mental health is toxic, it's a scam. Okay, I don't agree with that, but you know what? Her honesty about certain aspects of that, I can get behind. But again, she said manifestation is a scam, and yet everything she does and advice, it just sounds like manifestation. If you have certain appearance, everything is just gonna manifest perfectly in your life. Again, further about manifestation, she says energy influences everything in your life. And then she gives a story about not listening to Tate McRae anymore because of a song she put out called Guilty as Sin. And she said she had to give up on Tate McRae. And again, she's so wild and out there that there's some really dangerous things she says. It's like keeps pushing you further and further and further into some pretty harmful beliefs. And she'll throw them out there without a second thought or any contextualization. For example, she says abortion was the leading cause of death in 2024. Not for the fetus, for the mother. Really? More than car crashes? So going back to hating women, she's fine with all these rules about men watching over women. She has a rule with her husband that if they're texting people of the opposite sex, then they have to know about it for good communication. So then why is a girl trip so terrible if then her husband knows who she's with constantly? I don't really get that. They have all these security barriers like phone trackers and they know who each other are following on Instagram. But still, it just seems like she's fine if her husband doesn't trust her, but nothing about her husband not being allowed to go on a boys trip with the boys. Her whole connection with appearance and sex is odd. She stresses looking sexy with the husband again and again, but also says, oh, she and her husband are not allowed to watch sexy movies or anything with sex scenes because it's just sinful. Like, what? Then she has a whole hot wife maintenance routine, which she says could be easily 5 parts because of course. And to top it off, she's so stereotypical Gen Z, she says she uses ChatGPT to understand the Bible better. At least I'll say this. She gave a recipe for a protein s'mores bowl that I found really useful, and I actually have been making it and eating it, and I'm really grateful for it. So, okay, there's that.